Let's talk about the overall market and obviously the big story right now, the rand and its movements. What will you say some of the major catalysts were in the movements that we saw today?
Yeah, today was a very interesting day on the market, and it was very much characterized by movements in Naspers and Prosus. Both those shares were up on the day following a very strong close by 10 cents in Hong Kong. We also had quite a bit of strength coming through from the miners, and that really supported the overall market. When we look at the rand today, it was actually strengthening quite nicely, and then that US CPI report came out, and it ended up being an absolute shocker. And because inflation in the US is higher than what the market anticipated, market participants are now fearful that you might see interest rate increases in the US sooner rather than later, and tighter monetary conditions are not good for financial markets. And this is what has been reflected in the rand today.
I'm glad you bring up those heavyweights, Naspers and Prosus, because Prosus announcing today that it plans to buy just over 45% of shares in its parent company, Naspers. Now, I'm just wondering here, Chantal, what is the value of this move?
So Prosus is looking to buy a stake in Naspers for the sole purpose of increasing its own free float. So what does that mean? It means that there's more shares, there will be more shares tradable in Prosus on the European exchange as well as the JSE where it trades. This is because they're actually going to be buying a stake in Naspers by giving Naspers shareholders Prosus shares. So there will be more shares there will be more shares tradable. This in turn results in some of these large index funds having to increase their stake in Prosus. And that's kind of where the Prosus idea is at the moment. They're also thinking that a larger free float and more liquidity could result in the discount that they trade to relative to the companies in their portfolio narrowing somewhat. For Naspers, it's a little bit different. They're actually looking for the opposite impact. So they want their weighting in South African indexes to go down so that active portfolio managers and active unit trust managers will be able to hold a large overweight in Naspers shares. Because it's such a large component of the South African indexes, it's very difficult to justify owning more of it relative to your other holdings.
Right. Some other company news, Chantal, as we run out of time. Transaction Capital, they've resumed their dividend payments, saying that it's largely returned to pre-COVID-19 growth rates. What did you make of those numbers?
Yeah, I thought this was a great set of results. It was slightly behind market expectations, mostly because of a disappointment in income from SA Taxi, which was still very, very strong. But they really were dragged down by increased restrictions on or increased lockdown level 3 that came through in January and Feb. So that's expected to be transitory. We think that SA Taxi could do well in the next 6 months of the financial year. And then, of course, also the announcement coming through that they're going to increase their stake in We Buy Cars, which so far has done very, very well for them.
I thought that was very interesting as well. I think at just under 50% that we're going to be seeing there. Chantal Marx, as always, thank you for your time. That is Chantal Marx from FNB Wealth and Investment.